Well, hello again, ladies from Order My Steps. I didn't want to misquote the name. Thank you guys for coming back. I think we lost the director in the meantime. I think she'll be back, hopefully. Here she is. Thank you guys for coming back on. We wanted to really dig deep into this project. I think it's a wonderful project, like I said before. One of the things I want to throw right at the director and writer is what gravitated you to do a project like this? Why was it important to you to create a film about incarcerated people?
Well, I'll step in to start, Augusta, and please pile on as needed, or as you desire. Uh, I think that that incarceration is a blight on our country. To be just completely blunt about it, we have the largest incarcerated population of any developed country, and um, I think I think it's shameful that we haven't found a way to deal with poverty, addiction, all the things that land people in prison, mental illness. That with all the social services we have and the wealth that we have, it's really it's something that disturbs me on a regular basis, and I feel the inequity of it is, it's racist. Our play doesn't deal with that particularly, but it is racist, um, and we've got to find better ways to deal with, the sore spots in our country. Certainly, throwing people in jail is an easy way out of sight, out of mind, because usually people are off in the hinterlands somewhere. But it's it's expensive too. It's just there's so much that is wrong about it. Augusta, do you want to?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything that Kate has said. I also think that for me, just as Kate was working on this project, writing it, I was starting to get to know more students in the college where Kate and I both teach, St. Francis College, in what's now called our Justice Initiative program, which is a place where incarcerated people are able to get their bachelor's degrees, and meeting those people, those students who are such survivors and also had just suffered such trauma, not only in their earlier lives and in prison, but also when they came out, the way that they were treated by people and how difficult it is to get a job or just to be treated as a normal human being. I remember very clearly Felix Cologne, who's a graduate of that program, just telling me, that when he came to our college, he felt like people just treated him like a human being. And that was huge. That just totally changed his life. And I was like, but that's how you should be treated everywhere under almost every circumstance. We all are human beings. So that just, those encounters with those students really made me want to work on something that had to do with incarceration for all the reasons Kate has said about how unjust it is and how the craziness of how many people we have incarcerated in the United States. I mean, like she said, we're the country in the world, the developed country in the world that has the most people in prison. And as she also said, it's racist because the majority of those people are black and brown by a mile. Um, and so it's just something that I would really like to see change.
Wow. So, what was it in the decision process to make this film highlighted over women, a women's prison in particular? Was it something that you were passionate about from that angle, or it just happened to be that way?
Not really. I think it was just, having read the novel, I was interested in the mother-daughter relationship, and also in my family, we have a couple of mother-daughter estrangements, and so I think that that was feeding me as well. It just not on my side of the family, but on the side of my husband's family. Um, his mom kind of abandoned the family, and while she wasn't incarcerated, she uh, she spent a few nights in jail, and yeah, she was outside of society's realm. Let's put it that way. I won't go into more details just to keep my husband's history private. But and then my stepdaughter had a very abrupt estrangement from her mother. So, and I don't think she'd mind my saying this, but so that was my interest. But that being said, Augusta, pick it up.
Well, that being said, I think when we started to find out about how much the population of women in prison has mushroomed since the 1980s, we were also shocked and felt that it was really made it even more important for us to do the film, because I think it's something like 700%. Did I have that number right, Kate? Does that sound right to you? 600 or 700%. Like it's grown immensely, astronomically. Yeah. And
Wow.
and I don't think very many people are aware that how many women there are that are incarcerated,
And
and
60%.
what effect that has, like, on whole cycles of people going into the justice system, mothers and then their children. There's a great documentary called Jacinta, about a mother and daughter who are both in prison, and what that's done to them. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
So
war on drugs is really also, the war on drugs, and then the opioid crisis, and all of that is, this takes place in West Virginia, where now the fentanyl crisis, right? That's still going on, and yeah,
absolutely. You see it in the news every day. More and more people incarcerated over these. Um, in New York State too, there's like this the thing now with challenging with bail reform, where there's a differential between people with like petty crimes and violent crimes, and they're mixing them all in the mix, and that's where you get the double-sided argument against that, where people are putting different types of crimes in the same category. Someone gets caught with a joint, goes to jail and gets out, versus someone who does a violent crime, and now there's this big argument over what people staying in jail, when it really is the system right now needs someone taking a deeper look into what is going on and hold people accountable for the crimes they commit. And I think it's important that this film takes a deeper look into the population that you guys are representing. Going into the production side, and I'll start with Carl with this. What did you find to be one of the more challenging aspects that you were responsible for? I mean, as an actress in this film.
When starting to work, when seeing this film, getting the screenplay, which was a pared down, condensed version of what I had prior been working on when it was a stage play, I think the most challenging thing for me was to bring everything that I had been working on when I had more to say, in a smaller amount of things to say and a smaller amount of moments to play. I think that was the most challenging thing for me. And as well as knowing that there were flashback scenes in between the scenes and not getting lost in that, when knowing I'm in the present, that was a little tricky for me.
Yeah. I find it, how did you feel when you're doing a performance like that, where it's like we talked about it in the first half of this, where you have to do everything with your face. You really don't have much body play in this film to convey emotions, so you just have your face, but you have to keep your emotions intriguing. When you were looking at the script, what made you evolve with each page? Because your character, by the ending, we see a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
How did you necessarily get to that point?
Internal work, work as the actor, I suppose. And I like to be known as theater actor, which is big. You can't do that on the, I don't know how.
Oh.
I don't know how I I just was very focused and relaxed, not sleepy relaxed, but relaxed as an actor,
Mm-hmm.
and working on everything that I had homework and all my background work, and my emotional work as an actor. So I just relied on that and trusted myself and everybody that was helping me there on the set.
It's interesting that you said you're a theater actor. I would have never picked that out from watching the performance. Not saying there's anything wrong with theater actors at all. I have a lot of theater actors that work in my productions as well, but normally they're a lot more theatrical in their performance of theater, theatrical or bigger, larger than life, like you were saying. And you toned down your performance enough. But, as I was saying before, you kept it entertaining throughout, where, in the beginning, the audience is taken on this journey. And that could be partially from the wonderful writing as well. But we're taken on this journey where we don't necessarily know where it's going. And I guess we're pleasantly surprised. And yeah, it was good. So I guess you've worked out the kinks and the challenges there in the performance. So going to Augusta, what do you think the most challenging aspect of this production has been for you?
Well, I think that the most challenging aspect was making sure actually that we felt the other side of the conversation, because Carla is so amazing. I was confident in her from the beginning, and I had seen her in the Zoom plays. I don't downplay her achievement, because like I said the other day, that's like she went from being like a silent cinema actor to being in the sound cinema. Like the Zoom play is just quite different than a film, not as subtle, I think. And then theater acting is yet again something else. But I still had very much had confidence in her to bring that to the table, and she did. But I think of course, we had these wonderful flashbacks with another great actor, Molly Carden, two great actors, Molly Carden and AJ Lister, who played Molly Carden played the young Peg, and AJ played Dorian, the young Dorian. We never see the older Dorian. But also being able to feel the older Dorian through how the text appears on the screen and through the sound of typing, and and a lot of that really didn't happen until we got into editing. We had ideas about it, but sometimes your ideas don't work as well as you thought they did when you start cutting them into a film, as I'm sure you're aware, Charles. So that was a big challenge, but I think it was really, that I knew from the beginning that it was also about how do you take this Zoom play and really make it into something that's cinematic. And we just got to see it at the Mystic Film Festival on a very big screen, and Carla's face looks beautiful, and the whole film plays very dramatically for a big theater. So I'm very happy about that, because that was the thing that I was most worried about, was how do we make this big and make it work. And also, actually, I think the thing is now these days it has to be big and small. It has to work if somebody watches it on their phone, and it has to work if it's on a big theater. And I feel like somehow we managed to do that. And I definitely have to thank the editor, Laura Jean Hawking, a lot for her ideas and contributions.
That's a good point you did bring up there, that it has to work big for a big screen and on a small, because, not to plug the festival at all, but one of the things this year in particular, and, post COVID, in the world of COVID, I should say, is people are still on the fence about going out to big gatherings. People now, they're a lot more frugal with their money than they were before. Just seeing it, people going to the movies and stuff like that, going to shows. People are like, oh, there are a lot of people going to shows. I can tell you a bunch of people that I know that stopped really doing stuff like that, and they're watching them from the comfort of their own home. I'm a big movie buff, and I find myself sometimes choosing to stay home and watch things. So there's a lot of people that are part of this festival that are voting and watching films entirely off of the website, their phone, their tablet, their smart TV. And I think the wave of the future is for filmmakers. I mean, look at how big certain channels are now, like Netflix and YouTube and all that. The wave of the future is going to be a little bit of both. So you got to get creative with it. But I don't want to talk too much, Caitlin. or Catherine, sorry.
That's okay.
If you could tell me your most challenging aspect that you had to overcome in this production.
Well, the fact that I was brand new, I mean, that was like, oh my God. But fortunately, I found Augusta, who was a brilliant documentarian and is just coming out with her a big documentary called The Memphis Blues Society, and she won an NEA grant for that, and no, National Endowment of the Humanities, for the humanities, big one. And
Both arts and humanities. I was very lucky.
she's she's very well known in that world, and she's done feature, but she hasn't done it for a while. I mean, not feature, narrative. And so I was hoping to entice her with this opportunity, and I was very grateful that she came on board. And then she brought such wonderful people like Laura Jean, who basically, I got to tell you, the script was kind of up for grabs once they hit the editing room, because really, and you just don't know how, especially flashbacks. I didn't want them to be big, clunky, scenes that would just slow everything down. I wanted it to be kind of surreal and, just a moment of like, it's almost like you're seeing the character just seize up with the memories, seize up with the anxiety and the shame. And, when that person says, yeah, I don't see how the child should be treated like that. Just those, like we do in life, right? When we just have these little things that make our heart stop beating for a minute. And so I wanted that. And Augusta and Laura, were so good at, taking what we got in 2 days of shooting and,
Wow.
just kind of applying all sorts of filters and sound effects and mixing and matching, and because what I had written, quite honestly, it didn't work. So I mean, it, to my credit, I'm totally okay with that, that they move things around. I mean, there were certain things I stuck up for, but in general, one of the joys for me is I'm a very social person. So sitting alone and writing plays, I mean, I do it, but it's painful for me. I love collaboration, and I really enjoyed working with this team. Eva and Dolores, who you haven't met, is our other producer, and my sister Meg raised a lot of the money too. She's an associate producer. So, but the hardest part for me, I think, that we all shared was kind of integrating the flashbacks with the, ticking clock of the present time interaction. To me, that was the hardest thing. But, and then, of course, raising the money. I mean, I was kind of headlining that, and I'm not very comfortable asking for money, but I did. And so it was a learning experience for me. It really was a great learning experience.
Yeah, you hit a bunch of different points there. Raising money is probably the number one flag
Painful thing.
for an issue for independent artists. A lot of us self-fund a lot because we have a story we want to tell, and we'll do whatever it takes. And some of us, crowdfund, we ask around, but people are right now we're at the penny pinching days of filmmaking. But what we're noticing is people are getting more creative with their projects, and they're thinking outside the box. Like, what can I do? What can I make with this authentic? How can I make this more authentic with what I have, as opposed to creating something super elaborate? You brought up a point too about some of the decisions you had to make, as far as like editing and just dealing with other people on your production. More filmmakers need to be open-minded, like you just said, because film is a collaborative experience. And when you become a one-man band at times, not you in particular, but filmmakers, you don't get that balancing act that you really need. I mean, a film without all the other voices and collaborations, and everybody has their own expertise to bring to the table. I mean, without Carla's performance, you wouldn't have a movie. Without Augusta's direction, Carla would probably be lost, and the cinematographer, everybody would be kind of lost. Without your writing, you wouldn't. You need these different people on board, and the editor sometimes has to give you those harsh truths of things that you want to kind of either cut, or things aren't in alignment with you. So how do you, this is basically for Augusta and Catherine, what do you do when you have these hard artistic decisions to make and maybe conflicts of not agreeing?
Well, I have to say for me, because I do a lot of documentary work, and I think it's Werner Herzog says that filmmaking is all about killing your darlings. So I must be a cold-blooded mother to my films. Uh, but I think that I am used to that, and so, but there are always going to be conflicts also when you're working with people collaboratively, and just hearing what the majority of people say, and then also trusting yourself and just continuing to have that conversation and figure out, because sometimes everybody knows what the problem is and no one knows what the solution is. And you just keep talking and keep listening and stand up for what you believe in. And Kate, I'll throw it to Kate, because I just think she's really a masterful collaborator. She writes so elegantly, but yet she's really willing to hear feedback and really generous. So
I've always been very, very sensitive to, like, quote unquote criticism. But for some reason with this, I just had the dream team that everybody treated me so beautifully. And I felt trusting. I felt very trusting. So there was a couple things. I remember one of the things was, like, when I saw the rough cut, it seemed so green. I was like, what happened? It's green. And Gus was like, don't worry, Kate, don't worry. We're gonna, it'll be modified and color correction. And then eventually, it was very, very mild, and it also kind of brought out Carla's glowing face. And I realized, this is, I guess, what you do, so she calmed me down. And then at first I had a problem with, I remember she was like wanting to put the text in different spots so that the eye would go to different parts of the screen. And for me, I guess, I'm kind of flat-footed. I'm kind of grounded in reality, whatever. And I'm like, no, but that's not how it would be. Now I think it was a good idea, but it took me a while to get used to it and kind of like figuring out that it was going to be okay.
Wow.
So,
So,
it's a process.
so when you're originally writing this, and you sat there in front of your manuscript, the ultimate product of the movie, is this your vision, or was there a story that we haven't seen that is somewhere out there in the universe?
Oh, well, I am writing a script, for a feature that in which you'll get to see the kind of evolution of this relationship, and you'll get to see it from Dorian's perspective. So, you'll see it from both of their perspectives. But the person who really changes the most is Dorian, because as you can tell, Dorian, Peg has begun a process of evolution, whether through her program, through her, just like having to cool her heels in prison, she had to, like, reflect on herself and kind of like come to grips with all the damage in her life, and figure out what the anger was all about, because she would never get out of prison if she didn't stop beating people up. So she had to figure that out, and she's come some distance, whereas Dorian kind of was like the girl that you think, like, oh, isn't she wonderful? She had this horrible upbringing, but she turned into this wonderful person who's got a job and a family and kids, but underneath it's a house of cards. She's she's been holding it together all her life, and then her mother comes back, and
Wow.
everything falls apart. So you
That's
see. Go ahead, Charles. Sorry.
I was going to say that's a very interesting perspective to showcase another form of this film. That would be definitely a unique perspective to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was going to jump on there with Carla again. So for something like this, your character is, you're incarcerated through a majority of the film. You're acting towards, at the screen, you're watching the dialogue. Mentally, where were you at? Were you in this character? Were you embodying this method? I know a lot of actors, when they put themselves in this, they go to a dangerous, place with method. Was that something that you dived into, or did you take a different approach?
Well, I'm probably not as much a method actor as someone who might put themselves in prison to see what it's like. Do something bad that gets them put there. But I just drew on every possible thing that I have inside me and from my life and my experiences that I could relate to what Peg was going through, from my own life. I have a child, I have grandchildren. I know what it feels like to be estranged, to crawl your way back, to have, to make mistakes, to be horrific. Never hurt anybody, but to be horrific, emotionally to someone, to make mistakes, and just to live, to loss, all those things. That was part of my homework when I identified with the script. And that's what I worked from as I was saying the lines and the creation of the characters and the relationship and all that, everything that I did myself.
How would you describe, if you had to describe to someone, Peg, like what would your description of Peg be if you had to lay it out?
Someone, we always see these tough people on the outside. And a lot of times we don't know why they're tough, but they're tough and like a rock. But inside, there's reasons they keep it hidden. They're extremely, like most people are sensitive, but the people that keep it in from past abuse or bad choices or trying to escape pain, people that keep it in appear, the facade is like a tough person. What was the question again? I'm lost in Peg now.
No, how would you describe Peg? I mean, you're answering it.
That's how I would describe her. And but she's also, some people never get past. They never learn. They can't. They just can't get past what they are, what they feel, what they've done, their choices. She is moving forward, and that's very positive. And I don't know if we're going to get there, if she'll get there. She's hoping to get there. So she's in a spot of feeling really good about a lot of things and having to clean up the mess of a lot of things at the same time, and learning to love and be loved. Love.
I think
love
hope is the first part there, that she has some hope in the project. And if that element was taken out of it, what would an audience gain if there was like nothing for her character to strive for and feel? I mean, that's why.
Yeah, they would just be witnessing someone in a dark space. And I think it's wonderful that there's hope.
There was so if you don't mind, I'll jump in here. But there was a documentary that also influenced me called The Work. And what I was seeing, it's about a group of incarcerated men who are trained to be facilitators of men's support groups. And these men, and they would bring people in from outside to take these sessions with the prisoners leading. And these men were so elegant, they were so evolved and so sophisticated with the way they approached the people in the support group. They'd walk up to them and say, don't get away from that. They'd touch them on the shoulder, let go, come on, man. And then people would just breakdown. And that inspired me because I thought, some people do evolve in prison. And I wanted to show that because in prison, you only see the shows, you see a lot of the decadence, a lot of the fighting, you don't really see, not that I'm trying to be Pollyanna or anything, but I wanted people to see Peg as a human being, a full human being who still has vestiges of her reptilian self. I mean, when she asked for that letter, that's really stupid. Only a person who's like a kind of a drug addict, she's sober, but she still has that impulse. Got to have it now, and that's the wrong thing. She should never have done that because the daughter is only going to now see that this interaction is only transactional.
Yeah.
Her mother doesn't love her. That's how, Dorian might. And so that was really stupid. So I wanted to show that she's not perfect, but
it's interesting you brought that up. I've done a few different Q&As throughout this week, and I actually had a Q&A with another film called Tyler, which it was a person kind of stuck in a loop, making poor decisions that would alter his life. And he made a really bad mistake when he was younger, and he got judged for it for his, throughout his upbringing, where he couldn't escape what people believed he was and what he could be. And a lot of that elements of that film talk about redemption. And I feel Carla, or Peg's character, I should say, not Carla, Peg's character in the film, there's redeeming factors of what she ultimately could be. She could be more than just an incarcerated person. And beyond that there is light at the end of the tunnel. These people can change regardless of mistakes they made. We've all made mistakes, and some of us got away with these mistakes and didn't get incarcerated. And it's a sad reality that is happening in modern day America and beyond, that there are good people that are incarcerated that want hope and to get out of these circumstances. I wanted to go to Augusta, and you've filmed in some unique places in this project, like a prison that was apparently still in use. What did you guys do to meet timelines and hit with your challenging locations?
Well, I have to say that my AD, Riley Weimer, was really huge in making sure that everything stayed on schedule. And of course, the producers, Eva Menamar and Dolores Diaz, also did an amazing job with that. But really, like, the first AD was so amazing with the scheduling and going like, we only have 10 minutes left. Like, you could do this or you could do that. And, so that's a really great tool to have when you're a director and your head's been fully inside the scene that you've just directed. So to not have to have that timekeeping mind be only up to you, or to have some help with that was huge. Because I've worked on a lot of projects where I haven't had a first AD to tell me that. So it was me, like, in the interview or filming something, thinking, on the side, like, okay, I have this much time left. Okay, I could do this or this. And then that sort of takes away from what you're doing in the moment as a director. I mean, one of those things gets given short shrift. And like, if you're going to not be able to have any more time in a location, it's a little bit of a complicated thing to figure out. So great to have some other people helping out with that. So that was, he was a big help.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys filmed that in 2 days, right? So
2 days, one day at the prison with Carla, and then the next day at a location in Frenchtown where we shot the flashback material with Molly and AJ. And who was there on the first day had COVID and had to stay home on the second day. So that was another challenge, but we made it through.
That's awesome. It had to be a tight deadline. I could tell you, at a prison or any location in general that you need like permits or insurances with, it's not like a friend doing you a deed. If it's an actual location and you got to get stuff done in a matter of time, you have to have a level of trust with everyone there, or else a lot of time and money is going to go right down the drain. So thankfully you guys got the product you embarked on. So I want to go through this for each of you. If there was anything you learned during this production process, it could have been at any step of the way, whether it was writing, whether it was on set, or even post. Anyone want to start, Carla?
Anything I learned, I can't think of, not that I haven't learned, but I can't think, but I do know that I was enhanced once again with the power and artistry of the editor. When I saw the rough cut, which was the first time I saw it, I thought, oh my God, I was really blown away by it. You know, the editing was, at that point in time, was the star to me. You know, it was just, I was so impressed. I was so and proud because I knew what we filmed. You know, I knew what we did during the day. I couldn't recall it at that point because when I was pretty delirious when we finished, but I knew all the stuff that we filmed. And I hadn't seen the flashbacks, of course, because they were done outside of my presence, but I knew what the script was. I was amazed. I just was amazed. So my hat's off to all editors out there, you know, afterward, you know, it awesome. Made me realize how
you're not lying. Editors can turn, I'm not saying you're a poor actress or anything like that, because you definitely are not, but they can make magic happen.
Oh yeah.
You know, by just a few little cuts. And at times I've had editors like with myself, where I made a terrible mistake, or I know that wasn't my best, where I'll look away, like, and I'm not even supposed to be recorded, but the cinematographer happened to catch me and he used that reaction for something else. I'm like, dude, I wasn't even in the mindset. How'd you do that? But editors really are detail oriented, whatever it is, and they're looking for it. And if you have a great connection with that editor and they know your vision, stuff that I would never imagine as an actor, they pick up on. If they're, you know, in cahoots with the director and writer, they know what kind of they're looking for. So it's a beautiful thing. What about you, Augusta? What did you learn from this production, if anything at all?
I learned a lot. I mean, I learned, first of all, that I could work with actors, because I hadn't done that for a long time. So that was exciting. And, you know, Kate was there to be kind of my training wheels and guide me along a little bit, which was definitely helpful. But that was exciting to me, and to see someone like Carla develop this performance was amazing. And then I think I also learned that there are a lot of skills from the documentary, from my experience in documentary. I was going to say from the documentary world, but particularly from my experience. So, I mean, editing and figuring out how to make something out of maybe what wasn't what you ideally wanted. But also having the DP that we worked with, Juan Carlos Barrero, has also done a lot of documentary work. So he's really great at capturing sometimes those moments where you're looking away and you think the take is over. Sneaky, but sometimes very helpful, and just capturing the texture of things, like Carla's hand on the mouse pad, in a way that makes us feel really like the detail and the grit of being in that space. So I was happy that those skills of mine and my DP from the documentary world really could come in handy in the fictional world.
Awesome. Definitely. Catherine.
Well, I've learned, like in this case, I really wanted people around me that were, you know, supportive, friendly, and talented. And I feel like, you know, I learned about myself that I'm a good collaborator. I think that I love it. I really love, you know, and I trained in improv when I was 40. And I was in an improv company for a year, and it was really helpful to me. And I learned the joy of finding your work in the space between people. And this was like, I say that was the most fun I've ever had. artistically and creatively. I've just had a ball at every step of the way. I learned that I love it, and I learned that, asking for money is okay. That's, I'm an Irish Catholic girl who's like, oh no, you don't. That's a shame. You should not do that. But it's okay. People don't have to give. That's fine.
No.
You have to learn to let go of everything. Let go of the fact that, like, somebody barked at me. I'm sick of people asking me. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. That's it. And then I had to just say, like, forgive him, Kate. He's something is going on. It's nothing to do with me. You just have to, that whole interpersonal skill of learning to ask, but being okay with the results. I mean, that was huge for me.
Yeah, it's a big one. Like we said before, it's one of the toughest things for us artists is we have to obtain funds to make our magic happen. One of the things you said was really inspirational is you started this improv group, or you joined this improv group in your 40s. And that's so inspirational because a lot of people feel like it's too late. Too many people that I talk to, that have great personalities. They're great writers, great musicians, whatever it may be. They feel like it's too late to do something. At this point in my life, I'm past that. I hear those type of things, and it seems like they're giving up. And the fact that you wrote this thing, and this is your first time embarking really into filmmaking or screenwriting, I should say, is an amazing thing. And joining that improv group, you thought it was and this whole experience has been like a giant highlight for you in your life. So more people should do that.
Absolutely. And it's not even it's kind of an imperative for me, because I thrive under these circumstances. I really feel good. And, as you get older, things start to fall apart. So you have to kind of aggressively pursue joy, I think, personally.
Yeah. It's been amazing. So I'm going to leave you guys with this one last thing. And I ask a lot of filmmakers this, and if you've seen other Q&As, you probably know what I'm going to say. What's next? Okay, that's for each of you. Carla, what's next?
Oh, I know what's next. I am working on a future theater project that may have a production at the end of 2024 in New York City. That's what I'm working on now.
Awesome. Look forward to hearing more about it. Augusta?
I have been working all day today on final preparations for the world premiere of my documentary feature, which Kate already mentioned, The Blues Society, which is a story about a blues festival in Memphis, Tennessee in the 1960s, and how that festival changed the city and changed the way a lot of people thought about the blues. And so it's debuting at Indie Memphis in Memphis, appropriately for a Memphis film. So that's 7 years of work.
Wow.
So that's very exciting. So it's kind of like I'm done, but it's still sort of what's next at the same time, and hoping to bring it to a lot more festivals and get it some distribution.
Awesome. Catherine?
I'm working on the script. The full-length script. I'm not in the process of starting to raise money or anything like that, but we're developing the script, and I'm also working on the full-length version of the play. I'm hoping to get a production of that as well. So, I've got a couple things, and and open to all sorts of projects. And I'm even working as an actress the next couple of weeks. I can't believe it. I started as an actress, and suddenly somebody asked me to do something, and I'm like, really? But then I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
It's awesome. As long as you're having fun and you're passionate about it, what can go wrong? I want to thank you, ladies, for being a part of this wonderful conversation. I think we dug a little bit deeper into your production than just surface level. And that's what we want at this festival. We want people to look back on the conversations we have and understanding why people do what they do, or how other filmmakers approach different situations. And it's never too late. to start something you love. That's what I learned from this conversation. I've also learned a lot about, the criminal justice system and why it's important that we take a deeper look into that, like films like these. So it's great for me. And I want to thank you for submitting to the Catskill International Film Festival. It's an honor to showcase your film. You could have submitted anywhere. And what I asked the audience, guys, if you liked Order My Steps, go to CatskillInternationalFilmFestival.com and vote. I can tell you right now, people are voting. They are voting. They are voting. So thank you, ladies. And good luck with this festival run.
Thanks, Charles. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Charles.